This is the story of Dennis Rodman, an unlikely champion who went from a fractured childhood and nights without a roof to the bright lights of NBA arenas. That dramatic transformation, survival turned into mastery, defines a life that looks like a movie, but belongs to one of basketball's most unforgettable characters. If you enjoy deep cinematic sports stories, subscribe and hit the like button now so you don't miss the rest of this saga. Dennis Keith Rodman entered the world in a modest setting, born into a family that quickly found itself stretched thin. Abandonment and instability were part of the early script. A father who left and a mother who struggled to make ends meet forced rapid maturity. The boy who would later be nicknamed the Worm learned early how fragile normal life could be. These formative years seeded a hunger and resilience that would become Rodman's secret weapons on hardwood floors around the world. Adolescence offered no cinematic guarantee of stardom. A shin-small teenager, the future rebounding icon did not excel in basketball at first. School teams provided harsh lessons and repeated rejection. For a while, survival techniques replaced sport-specific drills, odd jobs, wandering, and periods of couch surfing or sleeping outdoors. During one especially bleak stretch, shelter became a luxury rather than a given. Those cold nights and uncertain mornings sharpened a mindset that refused to accept being overlooked. The memory of empty pockets and borrowed meals remained a quiet, relentless coach, shaping choices, fueling work ethic, and teaching a young man how to compete against circumstances as much as opponents. A surprising physical transformation altered the trajectory. Growth spurts can rewire a life. For Rodman, sudden height gains turned a marginal athlete into someone the colleges could no longer ignore. The shift from undersized frustration to a body built for the battle under the rim changed opportunity into obligation. Small steps followed: tryouts, a scholarship to a less heralded school, and a chance to play when chance itself had seemed absent. Southeastern Oklahoma State became home for those next-level experiments, an environment where raw intensity and an obsession with rebounding transformed into statistical dominance. The NAIA record books would eventually reflect a player who had learned the physics of missed shots and the psychology of second chances. Even as the athlete's body matured, personality remained a puzzle. Introverted and volatile by turns, the player often kept to the shadows off the court while unleashing a relentless motor during games. Teammates learned that this was not a typical superstar temperament. Instead of comfort-seeking flashes and highlight reels, there was fixation, relentless drills, endless attention to angle and timing, and a hunger for the invisible stats, offensive boards, contested rebounds, and hustle plays that shift momentum. That scrappy, obsessive approach was not glamorous in the moment, but scouts began to notice the rare efficiency, an energy investment few others were willing to make. What started as survival mechanics evolved into craft. The draft day arrival to the NBA carried that same underdog stamp. Selected late, without national fanfare, the recruit stepped into a pro league skeptical of his tools, but unable to deny the work rate. Early assignments required defensive versatility, guarding bigger opponents one night, quicker scores the next. There was room for growth, but only if hunger became routine. Coaches who appreciated effort learned how to turn that combustible willingness into role specialization. Those early roster spots were not guaranteed privileges. Instead, they became proving grounds where determination met structure. Within a short span, the emerging role player would become a defensive anchor and, in time, a rebound machine whose numbers and impact forced a re-evaluation of what a specialist could be worth in pursuit of championships. The arc from those difficult beginnings to the NBA stage remained propelled by three core elements: relentless work ethic, a fixated study of the ball's angles, and a refusal to be defined by early labels. Nights without a bed did not cast a permanent sentence. Instead, the memory of scarcity became fuel. Angles and timing, once random observations, were turned into repeatable techniques. Every missed shot was treated like a map of possibilities, and every rebound an assertion that past circumstances no longer dictated future outcomes. This mindset, turning scarcity into strategy, would be the foundation for championships and a legend built as much on perseverance as on statistics. From role player to bad boy, Detroit's defensive anchor and the first rings. This chapter dives into the searing transformation that turned Dennis Rodman from an overlooked late draft pick into the defensive backbone of Detroit's bad boys, a mover whose hustle altered championships. If cinematic sports tales are your thing, subscribe and smash the like button now so you don't miss the rest of this series. Drafted near the bottom of the second round in 1986, Rodman arrived in the Motor City with a reputation that required reinvention. The selection at 27th overall did not come with star billing or instant privileges. Instead, an opportunity arrived inside a team built on grit, not glamour. Joining a roster anchored by Isaiah Thomas, Joe DeMars, Bill Laimbeer, and a head coach who prized toughness provided the perfect laboratory for someone who had already learned survival. That late draft status made every appearance a proving ground rather than a coronation. Early seasons featured limited minutes but glaring impact. Rather than chase scoring accolades, the forward reinvented contributions into defense, physicality, and an appetite for loose balls. Coaches rewarded hustle plays that rarely make front-page headlines but alter series momentum, boxing out, chasing down errant passes, and contesting shots with brutal intelligence. Instead of statistical flash, there was an accumulation of small, repeatable advantages that over time rewrote how contests were decided. Those quieter skills fit perfectly with the Pistons' philosophy: win the ugly battles and deny opponents rhythm. The Bad Boys era was never accidental. Detroit's identity hinged on intimidation and disruption, and Rodman supplied a unique blend of versatility and instinct. Matchups that required guarding quicker wings or banging with bigger forwards were commonplace. Adaptability became a competitive edge. A player who could neutralize primary scorers while also cleaning the glass allowed teammates to operate within designed schemes that prioritized defense first. That strategic alignment elevated the entire unit. When playoff nights stretched into strategic wars, the presence of such a defender altered coaching plans and opponent game plans alike. By the 1988 to 1989 season, involvement increased and results followed. Rodman moved from a rotational role to a consistent starter, translating effort into measurable wins. The Pistons' run culminated in a sweep of the Los Angeles Lakers for a long-awaited championship, a triumph that validated a team ethos centered on physical defense and mental toughness. That first ring proved more than a trophy. It confirmed that a relentless pursuit of the ball and devotion to defense could outmuscle flashier offenses. For a player whose childhood lacked stability, the championship provided a public counterpoint to private hardships, a tangible evidence that transformation was possible. Individual recognition followed team success. By 1990, formal accolades arrived in the form of the NBA Defensive Player of the Year award, an honor acknowledging a presence that extended beyond raw numbers into the subtleties of denying opportunities. Back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year honors cemented a reputation built on anticipation, positioning, and an uncanny capacity to read trajectories of missed shots. Those awards reframed the narrative. No longer simply a scrappy role player, the remodeled defender was now one of the league's most feared specialists, one whose influence turned playoff series in favor of the Pistons. Rebounding emerged as the most visible metric of dominance. The art of securing second chances, offensive and defensive, was treated less like luck and more like applied physics. Instead of waiting for the ball to find hands, study and repetition revealed the ball's preferred paths. Rodman's technique became a manual: exploit angles, anticipate spin, and commit to the box out before the shot left the hand. These micro-choices, repeated thousands of times, transformed into rebounds per game totals that embarrassed taller opponents and frustrated coaches planning interior advantages. The rebound crown that started in the early 1990s was not an accident, but the logical output of obsession turned into method. The locker room chemistry amplified on-court effectiveness. Veteran leaders embraced the forward's intensity, and that acceptance provided a stabilizing structure. Where insecurity could have derailed progress, mentorship and role clarity built a second family. The Pistons' internal culture, discipline, accountability, and a refusal to yield, thickened the players' resolve. By the time Detroit secured back-to-back titles, a clear pattern had emerged. When system, identity, and personal drive align, former barriers collapse. That alignment converted past hardship into championship-level focus. Still, the path was not perfectly linear. The same competitive fire that produced rebounds also fueled confrontations and a persona that courts and media found polarizing. Flagrant fouls, chest bumps, and heated exchanges became part of the public record. But within the Pistons' strategic doctrine, those moments were tactical friction meant to unnerve opposition and tilt psychological balance. The Bad Boys tag carried swagger and strategic intent. For the team, the edge gained from those heated moments often outweighed the occasional penalty. The result, opponents had to plan for both physical matchups and a mental game that demanded composure under provocation. The Motor City Championships left a lasting imprint on the league and on the players' legacy. Those first two rings were not endpoints, but launching pads for an even stranger and more impactful career phase that would follow in other cities. The Pistons-era chapters demonstrated how transformation can be engineered, from late draft pick to defensive pillar, from unstable youth to teammate relied upon for playoff minutes. This phase of the story established core themes: resilience, obsession with craft, and the tactical use of physicality that would echo through later triumphs and controversies. San Antonio, Chicago, and the rebound empire. This chapter follows Dennis Rodman through a second act that rewired legacy. From a restless stop in San Antonio to a dramatic arrival in Chicago, the rebounder evolution reshaped championship DNA and redefined value in a title chase. If you're into epic sports transformations, subscribe and smash the like button now so you don't miss the rest of this series. A transitional season in San Antonio provided both a reset and a warning. Talent alone could not mask volatility. After years of carving out a niche as an elite glass cleaner, a move to the Spurs offered fresh playing time but also revealed friction between temperament and team structure. Coaching staffs navigated erratic behavior while teammates tolerated eccentricities because effort on the boards translated immediately into possessions won. That marriage of talent and trouble made the forward an unpredictable asset, one worth acquiring if the price and personality could be managed. The Spurs stint served as a necessary waypoint, proving that greatness sometimes required imperfect alignments before ideal opportunity could arrive. October 3rd, 1995, marked the pivotal transaction. Chicago traded for the rebound maestro, a move that many analysts called audacious. Front office executives in the Windy City bet that dedication to defense and mastery of second-chance opportunities would amplify an already all-time offense led by an iconic scorer and a Hall of Fame supporting cast. Management's wager paid off faster than anyone imagined. Within months, the newly assembled roster found chemistry in mismatched parts. The superstar scorers drew defensive pressure, while Rodman supplied possessions through offensive board persistence and defensive intimidation. The trade rewired the Bulls lineup in ways that statistical lines could not fully capture. Technical mastery became the signature. Opponents attempted to outmuscle and outposition, but repeated study revealed an unavoidable truth: rebound control is often technique disguised as hustle. Rodman's approach combined relentless pursuit with situational anticipation that turned missed shots into near certainties for possession recovery. By attacking the seams of shot arcs and backspin tendencies, the rebound specialist routinely outperformed taller rivals. The result was an almost cinematic tug-of-war under the rim. Every missed attempt became a micro-battle, and most of those micro-battles ended with the same outcome: Chicago retaining possession. That pattern proved decisive in close playoff games where a single extra possession could tilt a series. Statistics soon validated the eye test. During the first Bulls season that included the new acquisition, rebounding averages soared, and offensive boards became a recurring nightmare for opponents. The 1995-96 campaign saw the rebounder lead the league while providing a unique mix of offensive and defensive glass control that allowed the ball-dominant scorers to operate with fewer interruptions. Those rebounding totals, both per-game averages and offensive rebound counts, translated into tangible advantages over conference's rivals. Opposing coaches who planned lineups around perimeter defense found their interior arithmetic disrupted by a specialist whose sole obsession was the next jump. Beyond numbers, psychological effect mattered. The presence of a relentless board technician altered how opponents executed late possessions. Teams adjusted shots, hesitated on crowded lanes, and fought harder to secure cleaning rebounds, all because one competitor refused to concede any margin. That maintained pressure across 48 minutes and often carried through the postseason. In championship series, momentum swings frequently hinged on possession management. In that arena, Rodman's work created small but decisive margins that compounded into series wins. Teammates fed off the additional opportunities, while star scorers exploited the second chances to close out games. The partnership was symbiotic. Offense opened space, while rebounding ensured the engine kept turning. The Bulls' three-peat across 1996, 1997, and 1998 crystallized what specialized mastery can accomplish when aligned with championship intent. That trilogy of titles did not rely solely on scoring prowess. An overlooked pillar was consistent possession control. Through consecutive playoff runs, the rebounder ability to snatch offensive misses, often in traffic and under pressure, created point-after opportunities that swung critical contests. In the finals, those extra possessions often came in sequences that flipped momentum and forced opponents into rushed decisions. When champions are built, the architect is seldom just the top scorer. Role excellence often forms the mortar between architectural brilliance and structural collapse. Rodman supplied that mortar at the rim. Off-court drama continued to follow. Media narratives about flamboyant lifestyle choices and headline-making behavior often overshadowed on-court craft. Yet, within locker rooms and film rooms, the conversation remained steady and pragmatic: how to maximize a unique competitive advantage. Coaching staffs designed schemes that created space for perimeter creators while trusting the rebounder to police the glass. That trust demanded discipline and focus during the most pressurized moments of postseason play. Despite personality friction and public controversy, the on-court results remained the decisive defense of the value provided: championships. Legacy metrics later confirmed a remarkable phenomenon. From the early 1990s through the late decade, the rebound specialist led the NBA in rebounds per game for a record streak, an unprecedented demonstration of consistency that cemented status among the sport's all-time glass collectors. That run, coupled with multiple titles in different organizational contexts, created a portrait of a player who converted unpredictability into replicable impact. Historians and stat heads would later point to that 7-year span of dominance as a case study in how obsession with one facet of the game can reshape team fortunes. This phase of the career revealed the paradox of greatness: erratic personal life, flamboyant public persona, and unmatched professional devotion to a single critical skill. The Chicago chapter established a vivid truth for future evaluators: specialists who dominate niche domains can be championship catalysts when placed within complementary systems. Championships do not only crown scorers, Champion teams often elevate the quieter experts whose work determines the number of possessions available. In that sense, the rebounder's Chicago tenure became a blueprint for how unglamorous mastery translates directly into rings. Controversy, culture, and the complicated legacy of Dennis Rodman. This chapter peels back the headline-making moments and cultural fallout that shadowed an extraordinary career. Before we dive in, if you're into deep sports biographies and hard truths, subscribe and like the video now so you don't miss the final chapter of this series. Public life for the rebounding maestro never settled into a simple narrative. Athletic brilliance and headline-making behavior existed side by side, producing a story that sports writers, cultural critics, and fans would wrestle with for decades. Legal run-ins, on-court infractions, and an unfiltered off-court persona made the subject as controversial as he was compelling. Those controversies did not erase contributions on the hardwood, but they complicated how teammates, executives, and the wider public measured value and character. Legal troubles began piling up in the late 1990s and continued intermittently for years. Arrests for public intoxication, driving under the influence, and various domestic disturbance reports repeatedly placed the figure in the headlines. Some matters concluded with dropped charges or plea deals, while others resulted in probation and mandated counseling. These incidents, widely reported at the time, painted a portrait of a person wrestling with private demons in the public eye, forcing observers to separate athletic feats from personal conduct. The on-court temperament matched the off-court turbulence. Multiple suspensions and fines throughout the playing years reflected a pattern of confrontations. Flagrant fouls, physical altercations, and several run-ins with officials and opponents. A particularly notorious episode involved a headbutt to a referee in the mid-1990s that led to a multi-game suspension and a substantial fine, an incident that sparked debate about punishment, league image, and limits of acceptable aggression in professional sports. League discipline and media scrutiny increased the visibility of previous behaviors, turning isolated incidents into a narrative thread that followed each subsequent controversy. Public fascination with the persona extended beyond legal trouble. Fashion, gender-bending style choices, and a willingness to court shock value made the icon an odd cultural touchstone during an era of shifting celebrity norms. Brightly dyed hair, piercings, and unconventional outfits forced conversations about masculinity, fame, and the performance of identity. For some, the flamboyant presentation was a liberating expression that challenged conventions. For others, the spectacle distracted from on-court mastery. Either way, the visibility of that self-expression amplified commentary and made the subject a consistent presence in popular culture discussions throughout the 1990s and 2000s. Then came the diplomacy that stunned observers, multiple trips to North Korea, and a highly publicized meeting with the nation's leader. Those visits, framed by the subject as attempts at basketball diplomacy, triggered intense controversy. Critics accused the envoy of normalizing an authoritarian regime, while supporters framed the excursions as unlikely attempts to open lines of communication through personal connection. Media outlets and late-night shows latched onto the surreal optics of a former athlete turned accidental emissary. The spectacle sparked global conversation about celebrity responsibility and the blurred line between personal curiosity and political consequence. The North Korea episodes did more than add headlines. They crystallized a recurring theme: unpredictability. Career choices and public statements often defied straightforward explanation, producing bewilderment among allies and adversaries alike. Interviews oscillated between self-aware humor and tone-deaf proclamations, and the public never quite settled on a single interpretation. That persistent ambiguity made the subject irresistible to tabloid culture and a subject of academic and journalistic analysis seeking to understand how celebrity intersects with global politics. Amid the scandals and spectacles, institutional recognition arrived that forced a broader evaluation of legacy. Induction into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame affirmed the on-court impact, rebounding dominance, multiple championships, and game-changing defensive presence earned a place among basketball's all-time contributors. The Hall of Fame honor did not erase controversy, but it did require the public to reckon with the fact that exceptional skill and controversial personal life coexisted within the same life. For historians and fans alike, the induction framed an essential question: how should a society weigh sporting genius against problematic behavior? Culturally, the figure's footprint extended into fashion, media, and the language of sport. Younger athletes cited the example of using persona building as a career lever. Commentators referenced the rebounding work as a template for role specialization, and producers used the spectacle of the life for documentaries and features that examined fame's darker corridors. The complicated legacy thus carved two durable impressions: one of a master technician who altered team dynamics through obsession with possession, and another of a celebrity whose choices sparked both fascination and moral debate. Finally, the arc offers lessons for teams, fans, and institutions. On one hand, the career demonstrates how unique skill sets can elevate team outcomes and secure championships, an argument often made when evaluating value beyond scoring. On the other, the life stands as a cautionary tale about the costs of unaddressed personal struggles in the glare of public life. Teams weighing trade-offs between on-court returns and off-court risks found themselves confronting difficult decisions. Fans grappling with admiration experienced cognitive dissonance when confronted with legal or diplomatic controversies. That uneasy mix ensures that discussions surrounding the legacy will continue for generations. After the final buzzer, life beyond the court, lasting influence, and the quiet chapters. This final chapter closes the arc: what came after championship nights, how public life evolved, and why the rebounding legacy keeps shaping basketball thinking today. If you love deep sports biographies and want more, subscribe and like the video now so you don't miss future drops. Dennis Rodman stepped away from regular season rotations but never completely exited the cultural spotlight. Formal recognition arrived when the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame enshrined the rebounding specialist with the class of 2011, an institutional nod that placed those gritty, often overlooked contributions into the official record of the sport's greats. That honor made clear what teammates and coaches had long known: mastery of possession and denial defense carry championship value equal to scoring prowess. The induction speech itself exposed unexpected vulnerability beneath the flamboyant exterior, giving audiences a rare glimpse at the person behind the persona. Public life after retirement remained a study in contradictions. Media attention alternated between headlines about headline-making diplomacy and lighter cultural appearances. Multiple trips to North Korea surprised observers and provoked intense debate, since those visits involved basketball exhibitions, meetings with officials, and an unusual relationship with the country's leader that many commentators described as controversial. Defenders framed the excursions as attempts at human bridge building. Critics argued that celebrity presence risked normalizing an authoritarian regime. Regardless of interpretation, those diplomatic episodes underscored an unpredictable post-career trajectory that blurred sports celebrity with geopolitical curiosity. Entertainment avenues diversified the public portfolio. Appearances in professional wrestling, most notably in WCW, during the late 1990s paired athletic bravado with performative spectacle and introduced a different kind of audience to the brand. Reality television spots, talk show interviews, and occasional commercial work continued that crossover, demonstrating a willingness to reinvent personal narrative through media formats outside traditional sports coverage. Autobiographical writing, including a best-selling memoir, offered a candid recounting of triumphs and struggles, allowing readers to witness the private thinking behind public actions. Those creative projects reinforced a central truth: the life after the NBA was not a retreat, but another arena in which identity and reinvention played out. Charitable work and community presence appeared intermittently but meaningfully. Donations, volunteer engagements, and support for causes, ranging from youth programs to health initiatives, surfaced in reports and local coverage, suggesting an ongoing connection to civic life despite the sensational headlines. In recent years, acts like neighborhood cleanups and visits to community organizations signaled an attempt at quieter contributions away from national tabloid attention. Those moments of service complicated dominant narratives and reminded observers that public figures can occupy multiple, sometimes contradictory, roles simultaneously: provocateur in one headline, volunteer in the next. The long arc of influence on basketball strategy emerged less from flashy plays than from the quiet calculus of possessions. Analysts, coaches, and front office architects began to appreciate specialized mastery, players who do one thing extraordinarily well, and to value those skills when constructing rosters aimed at titles rather than box score glamour. The Rodman blueprint became a case study in how obsession with a single facet, rebounding, can multiply a team's opportunities and tilt close playoff contests. That lesson found echoes in analytics-driven conversations, where marginal gains in possession count are treated as high-leverage assets. Coaches who emphasize role clarity and obsessive fundamentals often cite such examples when defending non-traditional roster moves. Legacy debates continued to provoke thoughtful discussion. Some observers prioritized on-court accomplishments: 7 consecutive rebounding titles, multiple championships, defensive honors, and argued that sporting excellence should stand apart from personal failings. Other commentators insisted on a more holistic appraisal, weighing off-court behavior, public actions, and the broader social consequences of celebrity choices. That tension produced rich cultural conversations about accountability, forgiveness, and the criteria by which society enshrines public figures. For historians and fans, the debate made the subject's life an enduring teaching moment about complexity in modern fame. For younger players, the practical takeaway was straightforward. Craft and obsession beat natural advantage when purpose is precise. Workshops and developmental programs began deploying rebounding drills and film study rooted in the same principles that once elevated one man from role player to game changer. Anticipate the ball, read spin, and commit to the box out before the shot leaves the hand. That translation of lived experience into coaching vocabulary ensured that the technical lessons persisted beyond highlight reels and tabloid stories. In effect, the rebounding empire built in the 1990s continued to repopulate modern practice plans and scouting reports. Personal chapters grew quieter with time. Public appearances shifted from constant headline generation to selective engagements, fashion events, community initiatives, and occasional interviews, each one another brushstroke in a life that resisted tidy categorization. When reflective moments surfaced, the focus often returned to gratitude for opportunities and acknowledgement of personal missteps. Those admissions did not erase past controversies, but added texture to a biography that merges professional genius with human complexity. The image left for future generations is neither wholly heroic nor purely cautionary. Instead, it is a layered portrait of talent, turbulence, and reinvention. Ultimately, the final chapter of this story is less about tidy conclusions and more about persistent questions. How should greatness be measured? Can extraordinary skill coexist with imperfect choices? What does redemption look like for public figures who oscillate between charity and controversy? Those unresolved inquiries ensure that the life under review will remain the subject of documentaries, academic papers, and fan debates for decades to come. Above all, the basketball lesson endures. Obsession with craft, no matter how unglamorous, can bend outcomes and lift teams to championships. That truth secures a place in the sport's technical canon, and it guarantees that the narrative will continue to be retold whenever the next undervalued specialist emerges.